It's Saturday, November 29th, 2025. What a Black Friday we had with silver breaking out to new all-time highs and that quote-unquote Cyrus 1 data center glitch. We're going to talk about that. We're going to take a look again at the precious metals peak indicator scorecard. And today's spotlight coins are the Mint State 2019 and the 2019 Antiqued. What a Black Friday we had. Silver breaking out to new all-time highs, closing in at $56.45. Needless to say, I think the big boys got caught with their pants down. Typically, this is a week of light trading. Those that typically control the desks at the major banks, they're on vacation, and probably somebody decided, hey, let's do a lot of buying, and they caught them with their pants down. So not just myself, but a whole lot of people more qualified to talk about the matter in terms of trading in the futures market. That Cyrus 1 data center glitch, where they essentially said there was an issue with the cooling at the data center, Cyrus 1, which kind of controls the trading for the futures. And so that created a glitch, because otherwise folks believe that what was put available on the ask in terms of future contracts was nothing and got completely gulped up on the demand side. And a lot of folks thought this could have been a limit day up on the futures, so silver could have closed even higher. On a normal trading day, the powers that be on the banking side, they normally dump an exorbitant amount of silver future contracts and just try to force the market down. The other thing they tend to do is announce margin increases for gold and silver. So essentially, when you buy a futures contract, you don't pay the full dollar amount for the contract. You pay a minimum amount that is the margin required to maintain in your position. And so if you raise the margin percentage, that means you have to put more dollars down to back up your position. So they typically have done that. But what is very interesting about this breakout, it's a month-end breakout, and you'll see shortly. I'll show you a candlestick chart. Let's take a look at that. This is the silver monthly chart from Grady on X. Been following him for many years, and he's done all the work here. And essentially, these are monthly candles. And as you can see, Friday was the close of November, because Monday's already December. So on the monthly candles, and I told you I always like monthly candles or quarterly candles, they wash away the noise. We have a breakout. And so this is huge. And certainly we can have some consolidation back down, but this is a sign of things to come for sure. The other interesting change on the scorecard from the last time we talked about it is the gold-silver ratio has dropped substantially due to silver taking off to new highs. It's gone sub 75 at 74.76 to 1 ratio. So that's another sign of we are seeing a breakout in silver, and I believe we will continue to see higher and higher silver prices in the weeks and months ahead for sure. Speaking of the scorecard and the metrics that drive it, I wanted to have a discussion based on comments I've been seeing on social media. In the last video, I alluded that we've been in a secular bull market that has started around the year 2000. And I'm showing the comment here. It was a reply to someone who basically said, while I agree that Libertads have been an excellent investment and a great addition to anyone's collection, I disagree with the assertion that he makes that we are in a gold bull market, which is near the end. But when I say that we're near a gold bull market that's near end, I'm talking about a secular bull market. Secular bull markets do not take place in 5 years, in 10 years, or 15 years. This is 2 to 3 decades we're talking about. And my response was along the lines that typically in a secular bull, the type of behavior you see is that 80-20 distribution. And what I mean by that is that 80% of the gains happen in the final 20% of the timeline. And if we're talking about a secular bull market, let us assume that this market were to peak in the year 2030. Well, 80% of the timeline to the year 2030 would be 2024. And guess what? In 2024 is kind of when gold broke out to new all-time highs. And the remaining 20% of the time is 6 years. Yeah, it is 6 years. It's not a day, it's not a week, it's not a month, it's not a year. It is 6 years. But when we're talking about a long time frame of 30 years, 6 years is not as much time as you think. So that's what I'm alluding to as we're near the end. The other thing I wanted to discuss is comments such as these, several of them out there, where people essentially complain that people are coming up with the wrong type of price targets for silver, for gold, etc. This is just one of many comments titled "Wrong Valuations Are Being Given by YouTubers," and this was posted in the Silver Degen Club. And essentially, they're just complaining these numbers are wrong, they have the things wrong, but I've shown very objectively, and in prior videos I went through the whole detail of showing you how much M-True money supply has grown from 1980 to current time frame, and that multiple that gets applied to the all-time high of 1980 is at 13. And so right now, like that top, and I told you I had a range here because the blow off top happens in days. So this equivalent price of movement in $1980 happened in days, and I have the objective of 647. And don't forget, that number can only grow larger. Imagine you have another money printing event like we had with COVID. We could suddenly have in like 2 years, we could have a multiplier of a 20. And a multiplier of a 20 puts us around $1,000. So the key is to actually have some metrics. And I built these metrics essentially as a playbook based on my own beats and the beats of others. And while I only showcase 4 metrics, the full spectrum of metrics I have is over a dozen of them. But I'm not presenting them all these days because that would just generate analysis paralysis. But I'll tell you something, when silver is $200, $300 per ounce, at that juncture, I will be presenting more because that means we're really, really getting close towards the end. Just to give you an example of another potential metric, this is the Dow Jones to gold ratio, which we have talked about in length previously, and it is part of the scorecard. And this is a chart from North Star on X. I've talked about him before, and I've shared his charts here. It's a bit outdated. It is from 2024, so we are currently at around the 11 mark, as I shown in the scorecard. But the essence of this chart, what it's trying to highlight, is essentially this megaphone pattern that has taken place since the Federal Reserve was created. And essentially what it's showing at us as we're having increased tops of the ratio as time progresses, and so higher highs on the tops and lower lows on the bottom. And on the tops is essentially when gold is at a bottom and the Dow Jones is at a high. And on the bottom we have when gold is at a top and Dow Jones is at a low. And essentially what this is projecting, if this megaphone pattern continues, then we could say, forget 1-to-1, it's going to go sub 1-to-1. So sure, you can have done a scorecard where a portion of your portfolio, you could say, okay, when it hits 1-to-1, I may get rid of X percent, whatever it may be that you have in mind, 10% of your holdings. And then you may have another one saying, when the ratio goes to let's say 0.5, a 0.5 ratio is suggestive of mathematically that the gold price per ounce would be double that of the Dow Jones index. So that just gives you an idea of the number of metrics you could really come up with to kind of break down and put together your exit strategy. And that's the essence of a scorecard, that you want to have an exit strategy. I think most people who are investing don't have exit strategies for what they're investing in. A lot of the folks, you have these Elon fanboys. They're long Tesla. They've been long Tesla for a long time. You have a lot of folks riding the AI bubble, and you're thinking, the AI is the future. It's the way to go. It's never going to change. But that same mindset existed 100 years ago. At one point, the Dow Jones was dominated by canal stocks. And after that, the Dow Jones was dominated by railroad stocks. And everybody thought that would never go away, that is the future. So no matter what market you're in, at some point, it's time to get out. So you do need to have an exit strategy. And that is the essence of having a scorecard, having multiple, essentially, milestones of where you're going to exit out of your positions. To highlight how important it is to have an exit strategy, I'm going to talk about when I first started investing. This was late 2004. I sent my first check it was the Ameritrade days. They actually had a service called Free Trade that if you agreed to an all electronic based platform, no paper statements whatsoever, it was just $5 trades. I didn't really know what to invest in specifically, and I'd asked my roommate T at the time, when I lived with during college for 3 years, and he showed me what was in his portfolio, and I started researching these things, and the one that drew my attention was titanium. And I actually have this 1 ounce titanium round I keep here for good luck. And essentially, what drew my attention is I got lucky. Back in those days, there was no Reddit, there was no Instagram. You went to Yahoo Finance. Yahoo Finance had a bunch of message boards, and that's where folks would post about every stock. And you had, just like you have on Twitter, on X, on StockTwits, you have these shills that put fake information. And I guess why I say I got lucky, there was a lot of folks in that message board who actually were not talking BS. They actually were heavily invested in industry. Some of them were in the industry or had retired out of the industry, and they were putting their life savings in. And I learned so much about that industry through them. And that company, Titanium Metals, it had such a strategic competitive advantage that even when that titanium bull market was over, a company called Precision Cast Parts bought them out. And then guess who bought Precision Cast Parts? Warren Buffett. So that's how good of a company it was. And so I got lucky in stumbling upon good fortune and a bunch of folks who knew what they were talking about, and I learned that whole industry inside out and how I was tied to the aerospace cycle. The unfortunate part was I had no exit strategy. I got caught in that mindset of, like what I alluded to earlier, these Elon fanboys, that Tesla is forever, that AI is forever. You have to get out at some point. At some point, things are overvalued. And even at that juncture, it peaked on May 11th, 2006, that specific stock in the titanium industry. And I remember on that Yahoo Finance message board, there was even a retired CFO in there who said, I think valuations are getting a little out of hand. It's probably time to get out. And I didn't want to listen. I was loaded on a lot of stock. I had a whole lot of call options, and I just wanted to make $1 million. And nothing could take my mind off that. And unfortunately, I didn't make that. I gave back a whole ton of the gains. I did make gains, but I gave back a whole chunk of it. And, that was the lesson for me. That was the bad beat. I did not have an exit strategy in place. And I said to myself, I'm never going to make that mistake again. Next time I find a bull market, I am going to have an exit strategy in place. And that's why the scorecard. Let's talk Libertads. So first things first, this is who I was talking about during the last video, Stacking NYC, Tommy. I stand corrected, actually. Tommy told me that not all, but many of the colorized Libertads actually have appreciated in price. And yeah, he's a dealer, so I thought, that might be a biased opinion. But my friend Bullion Cat has also told me he has 2 of them. I don't know if he said 2017 or 2018 colorized ones. And from the price he paid for them, they have appreciated as well. So I do stand corrected on the colorized Libertads, but to load up a sizable amount of them, I think that's a little precarious. I think it's safer to stay regular mint state unadulterated Libertads. Not only in the last video, but in some prior videos, and then not even related to my video, discussions in Facebook coin groups. The comment on my last video was saying that American Silver Eagles are the most trusted, most recognized in the world. Plus, it's not from Mexico, Mexico being misspelled there, so I'm not sure how to treat that. But this was from a Bozo is cool too was the username. So there's a lot of comments along those lines that, you know, Libertad's overhyped. American Silver Eagles are the most trusted. Libertads, just because there's a few of them doesn't mean anything. So because of that, I want to spend the next few minutes showing you some recent comps compared to when I started buying in 2021. I went and grabbed some screen grabs from 2021 when I was, and even 2022 when I was buying some of the key dates. And what you're seeing here is I'm highlighting when I purchased a 1998 Libertad MS69. And at that time, I paid $850 for it. And to boot, I did not know it at the time. A lot of people, it was not their line of sight about this particular one that I purchased was the die chip variety. So bear that in mind. I then went and pulled 1998, the most recent comp, and I had to come to the website I've mentioned on this channel, 130point.com. I recommend this website because on the eBay side, when somebody accepts a best offer, it doesn't show you the price. It just has that slash. So if you come here to 130point.com and do the search, Libertad 1998 MS69 sold listings, and you will see that it sold for $3,000. And as I mentioned, the one I'd purchased is the die chip variety, and that one's much rarer. That one has sold for over $4,000 in private transactions on Facebook groups. The next coin I want to highlight is the 1991 Type 2. And I went and I had to find a grade at the time because I do have a 69, I have a 68 and a 67. This is what I purchased an MS67 of that Type 291 for, $197.26 around mid-2021. I went and pulled a recent comp, same grade. I was looking specifically for the same grade, a 67, an MS67 1991 Type 2, and that went for on November 15th for $1,500. And finally, a coin we are going to talk about today, the Antiqued 2019. This was in 2022. I got an MS70 for $265.82. And here's the most recent comp on eBay for a 2019 Antique MS70, $2,999.99. Don't get me wrong, I think American Silver Eagles are great. I have alluded to this in earlier videos that, I mean, they always have a premium. They maintain their premium. I mean, I like American Silver Eagles way better than a lot of the folks, as I mentioned, on Wall Street Silver and Silver Degen Club. They're just fans of weight. They don't care if it's generic. They don't care if it's 90%. But at the end of the day, those items are not as liquid and they don't command a premium like an American Silver Eagle. So nothing is wrong with American Silver Eagles. It should be a part of any physical portfolio. But to go out of your way and bash Libertads, whether you just were not educated on it or you just, oh, it's a foreign coin, I don't care for it. I hope this provides some insight on the types of returns seen with Mexican Libertads. I mean, I don't think you're seeing that type of return on any of the Silver Eagles. I don't think the 95W Eagle proof has even appreciated at the types of multiples I've just shown you. So don't discount Libertads. Let's talk about today's spotlight coins, the 2019 MS Libertad and the Antiqued Libertad. So this is the second and final year of seeing antiqued Libertads. Bullion Cat and I were chatting, and he was telling me, and he showed me some pictures, and I forgot to save the picture. It would have been nice to show here. But he said that in 2018, when they first started antiquing, that I think Banco de Mexico tried to antique the coins themselves. And they were coming out so terrible that NGC nor PCGS would grade them as authentic coins. And that's why they outsourced the antiquing process of the BU coins to a foreign entity. And I think what implicitly we think happened is that costs money. That's an unforeseen cost. Costs start to add up, and they said, let's not keep doing this antiquing business. This perhaps costs too much money. Let's look at our mintages. And then the antiqued 2019 is the rarest of the mint state Libertads. It is considered a mint state Libertad because the antiquing process took place on a mint state Libertad. And entities like NGC fully recognize that because this coin is part of the MS registry. And there were only 1,000 of those. And due to that scarcity, that's why it's commanding such a high price. Looking at the brilliant uncirculated, the mint state, the mintage published on Banco de Mexico's website, I showed you in the last video, you look for the CM27 report. Those are always the official numbers. And you had 401,000 of those. If we follow the same logic we did when we discussed the 2018, you start with 401,000 mintage, official mintage. We subtract out the 1,000 antique because you cannot create an antique version of the coin without using one of the brilliant uncirculated coins. And then again, big point to highlight is this colorization of these coins that began in 2017, really accelerated in 2018, and every year forward since. As I mentioned, what the numbers Scott Dahl documented in the US Mex Journal and various issues around the era of 2018 and 2019, and also Stacking NYC Tommy, who said he's very comfortable saying where he's been selling in the more modern years that easily 100,000 of the BU coins get colorized in all types of designs. And due to that fact, if we subtract out that range of potential of 50,000 to 100,000 of the mintage taken to colorized, then ultimately for the 2019 mint state, we're estimating that there's a surviving mintage of 300,000 to 350,000. Let's have a look at the graded populations for both of these coins at NGC and PCGS. So on the brilliant uncirculated, the MS 2019 at NGC, there's currently 1,093 total graded. Top Pop MS70 with just 461 of those. The next line there is the MSAN, AN short for antiqued, the 2019. Out of the 1,000, NGC has graded 328 of them, with Top Pop MS70, 318 of those. On the PCGS side, 2019 PCGS has 3,722 of them graded. Top Pop, of course, MS70 with 2,629 of them. So many more graded on the brilliant uncirculated 2019 over on PCGS. As I mentioned before, PCGS has the population statistics for their antiqued under that tab called ONFA SP, and here we see that they have 198 total graded, Top Pop 172. So between PCGS and NGC, over 500 of 1,000 total minted have been graded so far. So there's still a decent amount there out in the wild. This is much different than other coins where less than 1% of the alleged total mintage has been graded. For this particular coin, over 50% of the mintage has been graded. Last but not least, let's look at the eBay sold comps. And while most of you know what the sold comps are, very easy to look up, this video essentially serves as a frame of reference. 1 year from now, 2 years from now, someone could come here and watch and see what were the sold comps back then, because eBay wipes out the sold comps once a listing is over 6 months old. And so this is really going to serve as a future frame of reference to say, hey, look how much the 2019 has appreciated in price. So we make sure we have our sold listings filter turned on, and we have on the 27th, 2 days ago, an MS69 sold for $93. On the same day, a raw one for $74.95. Another $74.99. On the 25th, one for $89.99. On the 22nd, we have a raw one for $85. On the 22nd, $70.96. Also on the 22nd, $70. Here's another search criteria slightly changed, just so we could take a look at that antiqued comp, as well as see what a brilliant uncirculated one in top grade goes for. So here is a 2019 MS70 PCGS that went for $215.25. Another first strike here, PCGS MS70, $202.85. There was one in early November that went for $127.50. And here is that comp for the very low mintage 2019 antiqued in MS70, and that was $2,999.99. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm hoping you're enjoying silver taking off to new highs. I certainly, when I first started investing in silver, I did not imagine it would take so long to get to these levels. I started in during the great financial crisis, looking at this chart here in late 2008. Spot price did go under $10, but back then you could not get an American Silver Eagle for under $15. So the spot price was almost meaningless. There was a lot of physical demand. Back in those days, I could not have imagined a secular peak going beyond the year 2020, but here we are, almost 2026, and we're just breaking out to new all-time highs, breaking out of that long-term cup and handle pattern that goes back to 1980. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe.